So, this is a speaker meeting. Our speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. We ask out of respect for our speaker to please remain seated until she has finished. It is my pleasure to introduce Monica.
Exhale, exhale. Hi guys, I'm Monica and I'm an alcoholic. So I kind of planned what I was going to say and did some reading and took notes on my phone when I was on the treadmill today at the gym, and it's just all gone, right? And the thing that I need to remember is that because I have this connection with a higher power that I work on daily, that it's really, if I surrender all of this to God, like my higher power is going to speak through me. So I don't really know what's going to come out of my mouth. But the thing that I do want to do is read a little bit from page 30, more about alcoholism, because I think it's, for me, it's really good to be reminded of where I came from. So it is on page 30 in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our own innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. And then I'm going to jump over to the second paragraph on page 31. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they are in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who is showing inability to control his or her drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman or woman, I add that in there, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. And I just want to say hi to everybody watching, because I've been a Zoomer for a year now. And hi, guys. So, yeah, we're all in this together. Okay, you guys, so I didn't get sober till I was 49, and God willing, on the 28th of this month, that'll be 7 years. I'll have 7 years sober, God willing. So we all have a lot in common, but the biggest thing that we have in common right here in this moment is that we're all sober. And I might get a little teary here, and I think there's Kleenex in my purse, but it's in my pocket. So the biggest thing that we all have in common is that we're all sober today, and that's a blessing. For me, it is a grace from my higher power that one day at a time I get to not drink, okay? So what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Yeah, so I'm an alcoholic, but I'm also an adult child of an alcoholic, and I also am an absolute control freak. So I work a couple other programs to deal with all that shit, you know, and I've done a lot of therapy. So my mom and dad got married because my mom was pregnant with me, and my dad did the right thing. I was born in 1964, and my dad regretted that choice. Probably still regrets it to this day. My dad was an alcoholic. Supposedly he's not drinking right now. My dad was a very highly functioning alcoholic, and my mom was an untreated Al-Anonic. So I grew up in a family that, you know, my dad worked for United Airlines and retired from there. My mom worked for Lockheed Martin, so my family went to work. Lived in a middle-class family, grew up around race cars and motorcycles. My dad was a very quiet, angry, angry, resentful man, and he was raised by two really gnarly alcoholics, and he was very abused by his father. So there was a lot of family dysfunction. I was born into family dysfunction that to the outside eye didn't look like family dysfunction. And most of my dad's anger got taken out on me in the form of not loving me and not liking me and not supporting anything that I did. So very early on, not knowing it, I became self-conscious and didn't believe in myself, didn't really know who I was, and didn't have a lot of self-worth. So my dad used to smoke pot and drink when he'd get home from work. It was the 70s. And the only time my dad was really nice and relaxed is when he was somewhat loaded after work. And then we go on these camping trips that were they were so much fun, and all my dad's buddies would come, and everyone would drink and pass the pot around the campfire. And my mom was just like she'd have like a half a margarita and be like, oh my God, I can't have any more. And so she would come on these camping trips, and she would be uptight and still trying to keep everything clean. And my dad's like laid back. I want to be like my dad. And the only time my dad ever acted like he loved me was when he was a little bit loaded. And so I think I took my first hit of pot when I was 12. I think my dad even passed me something around a campfire, and then I probably got punished for it on Monday when he was sober. But and my first whole beer that I had was at 12, and it was with my dad and two of his buddies. We had gone on with his tomboy. We had gone on this backpacking trip up to Yosemite. I'm from Santa Cruz, California, by the way. And Santa Cruz, ocean, water. And I was raised in Cupertino, California, in the Bay Area. So anyway, we went on this backpacking trip, and I was, we hiked. We were up in Yosemite. I had a 25-pound pack at 12 years old. I was pretty athletic. I was an athlete, you guys. I swam. I rode my bicycle. I came in third in Santa Clara County in cross country at 12 years old. I mean, I probably could have had a scholarship had I not, been taken by the disease of alcoholism. So when we got back after drinking water and eating freeze-dried food after that week of backpacking, my dad's friends, they all, popped a beer. And my dad handed me one and said, here, you earned this. I'm in the back of this old Land Cruiser, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, my dad loves me, and he gave me a beer, and everything's great. So that was my first experience of being a little loaded and feeling feeling accepted. So I was never comfortable in my own skin when I was growing up. I was kind of this tall, gangly, awkward girl they used to call me stork and giraffe and really, and they called me clown feet. I had big feet. I don't like my feet are pretty normal now, but I don't know. But anyway, so that's how that started. And the thing is that I have the disease of alcoholism, you guys. So that my disease of alcoholism, it will never be cured. I have to work on it every single day. And I have the disease, I suffer from the disease of alcoholism whether I'm loaded or not, right? I was raised in an alcoholic family. I'm as controlling. I've gotten so much better. I'm recovering. I'm not as controlling. And then I have this allergy and this obsession that a lot of people that suffer from the disease of alcoholism, they don't get addicted to substances. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine being suffering from the disease of alcoholism and not being able to medicate that away. And a lot of those people that suffer from alcoholism that don't become alcoholics, man, it's miserable. It's miserable. I'm in meetings with some of those people. So they don't get the gift of desperation that I think us alcoholics get, which is that, jails, institutions, and death, right? We're going to die of this disease. So anyway, I was a handful in school, got in trouble a lot, really rebellious, asked a lot of questions, did a lot of things, and so when I was 13, I had my first full-on rob the parents' liquor cabinet, drink a bunch of 10 High whiskey. Bad. Had a couple friends over, was really proud that my dad was a pot smoker. They stole like Thai sticks and all kinds of stuff out of the garage stash and had to bring it back. And I puked my brains out for probably 2 days. So that was my first experience with alcohol poisoning. And the thing for me is I was very controlled and very micromanaged by my family. So it was really hard for me to get away and actually party. And so I didn't get to do a lot of that. But my dad moved out of the house when I was 15. And my mom said, well, I'm done fighting with you. You can do whatever you want to do. And that was it. She went off and did her single thing, no longer had dad telling us what to do. And I basically went from being completely controlled, having my first drink at 13, to being free at 15. Got my first job. People that are old enough will remember the name Jempco. Had my first job, card please, at this store called Jempco. They've now turned into Targets. But dated older boys, got to drink when I wanted, got to help boys spend the night if I wanted to. This was the late 70s and early 80s, and there was a lot of white powders around at that time. So I learned how to drink like a lady back in those days without throwing up, because before that came onto the scene for me, I would vomit for 2 and 3 days. I was the girl that got carried out of, kegers with missing a shoe and puking and sitting in somebody's lap, puking out the side of the car on the way home. That was me. So anyway, that's kind of how that went. And so I finally kind of felt like I grew up at 15, and then at 17, boy, I met the guy of my dreams, right? 17, had it all figured out, and dropped out of my senior year of high school. Had a baby. My oldest son's 39, and love him to death. And had another baby at 19, and I just thought everything was great. I'm home. I'm married. My husband's going to work. He's a fire sprinkler fitter. Made great money. I'm making homemade dinners, throwing Thanksgiving homemade. My kids are in cloth diapers. I am living this double life, and I'm partying like a crazy person on the weekends. I'm partying, and then I'm shutting it down on Sundays, and I'm making homemade baby food and changing diapers and vacuuming my floors. So that went on for 5 years until, there was a lot of abuse, and it was very, very toxic. Because you know what, you guys, I suffer from, it's not like I was just crazy when I drank, and then when I wasn't drinking, everything was fine. And as my story goes along, what I was really suffering from was it was an emotional, we talk about emotional sobriety around here, right? So I was an emotional mess, and my head was on all the time trying to figure out how I was going to manage my life and everyone else's lives around me. I was filled with fear. And so that is kind of how my story goes. I got out of that relationship, got into another. At 28 years old, you guys, and there's some drugs early on that are part of my story. At 28 years old, I had this partying all weekend. So by now I'm a legal secretary, and I'm going to work in nylons, a suit, and high heels, double life. And I'm doing the deal, supporting 2 kids as this kind of a single mom, and I am just tearing it up from Friday through Sunday, and then I'm shutting it down. So that's what I did one weekend, and I went to work with my spinach salad, and my kids had their homemade lunch, and I went to Jazzercise. That's back in the day. Who remembers Jazzercise, right? So there was a gym across the street from my office in downtown San Jose. So I go to Jazzercise because, I've got my spinach salad and I'm going to be healthy. So I don't know if you guys are hearing the denial in this already, right? So I go to Jazzercise, and I'm doing all this. And mind you, I've had powders and alcohol in my body all weekend and probably didn't really sleep on Saturday night. Okay, so it's still in there. Right. You guys, most of you probably get that. And so I come back to my desk, and my heart is like racing out of my chest. I cannot get it to stop. So I'm basically in this full-on first-time panic attack. And I tell my boss, who I used to drink with, I go, I got to go to the emergency room. Something's wrong with me. I think I'm dying. I don't know what's going on here, but I got to go to the ER. So I drive myself to the emergency room. They throw me on the gurney. They're putting all this stuff in me and on me. And the doctor looks at me and he goes, you know what are you doing in your life right now? I'm like, what? I don't know. I took some diet pills. Never taken a diet pill in my life. And he looks at me and he goes, you know, Monica, he goes, your blood pressure is 200 over 120, your heart rate's 180, and we're trying to keep you from stroking out right now. And I'm like, stroke? What do you mean stroke? I'm 28. Are you kidding me? You know, so everything's happening really fast and it's a blur. And the doctor looked at me and he goes, whatever you're doing, you need to stop it or you will not live to see your 30th birthday. I was like, whoa, scared straight. Okay. So they sent me out of there with blood pressure medicine. I'm going to Jazzercise and eating spinach salad, you guys. Like, what the hell? Blood pressure medicine? And guess what else? Xanax. Right. Yeah. So I'm controlling my disease at this point. I have no idea that my disease is really causing this problem. I think it's because I've got all this emotional shit going on in my life and this relationship. And but I like my medicine. I like my medicine and it's relaxing me and I'm obsessed with my health and I don't want to die. He told me, stop drinking caffeine. You know, I didn't really smoke. I smoked when I was partying. Stop drinking caffeine. Don't eat chocolate. Don't eat anything that's going to stimulate you. And so I threw the powders out. That was fine. I didn't have any problem throwing the powders out. They scared me. Gone. Bye. Because I was controlling everything, right? Stopped drinking for a while. Had another baby out of wedlock with somebody who's, I can't believe he's alive, but he's still out there. And I didn't drink or really do anything for about 5 years. I mean, really, 5 years. And I was a single, hardworking mom and had 3 kids. And yeah, I went to church, went to Catholic church and learned how to do all that God stuff. And it was the most spiritual I had ever been in my whole entire life. Like I had this amazing, and you know what took me to the church is I decided to baptize my youngest son, who's 26 now. I decided to baptize him, and being the good mom that I am, I'm like, well, I can't baptize him without knowing what I'm doing here. I got to take myself through all of this stuff. And so I did that, and you guys, I had the most amazing spiritual awakening. And that's the only other time in my life, and I didn't recognize it then, that I had the feeling and the awakening and the sense of belonging and the sense of faith and trust in God that I have now. And I'll tell you what, the difference between what I did there is I spent a year on these couches with people just talking about how to live life in a spiritual manner. It was a really progressive Catholic church. It was called Queen of Apostles in Santa Clara, California, and the preacher there was amazing. And anyway, but what I didn't have after I graduated from that at Easter time, I got confirmed. I'd already been baptized as a baby. What I didn't have was anything to keep me going every day. And pretty soon, I'm in the congregation of church, and I'm like, ew. Person's bugging me. That person's bugging me. That's annoying me. I don't like that. And before I knew it, all my stuff that I didn't, you know, I was having this spiritual awakening, but I didn't have a way to look at all my character defects, right? Judgmental, self-righteous, intolerant, impatient, all of those things that are part of my alcoholism, whether I'm drinking or not. So I left the church because I was mad, and then all my anxiety came back, you know, and I got off the Xanax because I got pregnant with my son. But guess what? When I left the church, all my anxiety came back, and I went back to the doctor and I said, I'm really anxious. I need that Xanax back. So you guys, I was on Xanax for 22 years. It was a mixture of Xanax and Klonopin, and it was prescribed. It was prescribed, and I took it as prescribed. And I think the reason why it took my alcoholism so long to really become a problem is because, in case anybody didn't know it, benzodiazepines hit the same neurotransmitters as alcohol. Okay, and so I think that the benzodiazepines were kind of keeping me in line and weren't keeping me from needing to reach for more alcohol. So, you know, I got married for a second time when I was 35, and I married a guy that my brain picked, because I pick people that are abusive and they're alcoholics and they get loaded, and then I need to control them. So yeah, that's welcome Al-Anon. Yeah, that's my Al-Anon part, right? I'm an alcoholic, but I pick the alcoholic that misbehaves worse than me, and then I want to try and control that alcoholic, and never could look at myself. So I got married, and I married the good guy who's a partner in a law firm, and I got to stay home and have all the things that I thought were going to fill my emptiness. Okay, because I was a single paycheck to paycheck, open the mailbox, I can't pay that bill, I'm not taking it out of the mailbox, mom. Driving an old minivan. Yeah, I'm the mom, the minivan mom, who actually jumps out of a moving minivan at like 25 miles an hour because she's throwing a pity party fit out of the minivan, right? And yeah, I've been there, done that. So I get married. We build this big house up in Placerville, California on 5 acres. We have, horses. I gentle a wild Mustang in my disease. You know, I do this first touch with this wild horse. I'm raising and showing English Mastiffs. Hey, and I decided to adopt a little girl at 4.5 years who had been seriously abused and neglected. So this is how much in denial I am about my own disease. I'm drinking daily at this point and counting the hours until 5 o'clock. Until one day I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. I can drink at 3. I can drink at 2. Fuck it. I'm going to drink at noon. So that was in my early 40s. And you guys, all I want to say for any people out here that think that you're going to get sober and get all this stuff and that's going to be like the answer, I had all that before I got sober. I had a 3,800 square foot house, a big ring, 3 cars, a 40-foot fifth wheel, a bunch of horses and dogs, friends, wine, food, vacations, you name it. I was my emptiest ever in that lifestyle. In that lifestyle, I couldn't have been more empty. And we talk here about the spiritual malady and the God-sized hole. The more stuff I piled on, the worse it got. And I overwhelmed myself with so many things trying to fill the emptiness that then I had to numb because I was so stressed out. So by 2010, 2011, I was pretty much drinking daily. I got the first time I got put in jail from alcohol is when I jumped out of the minivan because my husband wanted to go home. We lived right above American River whitewater rafting, right above Lotus, California, which is this really cool little river town, and it's just hopping in the summertime. So we were at one place eating and drinking, and I said, I want to go to the Coloma Club and dance, which is this total dive bar. And he goes, I don't want to go there, and I'm throwing a fit. And so he's telling me he doesn't want to go, but he's driving me there, so I'm throwing a fit because he's not in agreement. Now out I go. I jump out of the minivan. I'm shit-faced. I go running down some country road in my flip-flops and shorts. It's summertime. Anyway, I walk back in the bar about 45 minutes later, and the cops are in there looking for me, and they asked me to come outside, and I'm like, sure, everything's fine. He goes, you're under arrest for drunk in public. So I spent the night in jail. That was the first time I got arrested for my alcoholism, and then the second time was when I got a DUI on Labor Day weekend of 2011. Went right through a red light and a crosswalk at 1 o'clock in the morning in downtown Folsom. So that began my journey of the whole sobriety thing, and I had to go. It took me a year and a half after that to get sober. So I had to go to an AA meeting. I had to go to all these, DUI classes, and I remember sitting in the DUI class, and the instructor, his name was Marvin. He had this big jar of pickles up here on the on the table, and he said, "See that, you guys? Once a pickle, always a pickle. Once you're a pickle, you cannot go back to being a cucumber." And I was like, whatever. This is really fun. Like, I totally get all the people here, and I loved it, man. I probably got an A. If they were handing out grades in DUI class, I probably got an A+. Like, I just dug everybody there. I'm like, no, I'm just not going to drink and drive, and I'm not giving up my wine and my cooking and my shrimp, and no. And when I reflect back on it, I was absolutely terrified, you guys, that my life would end if I couldn't drink and have these really gnarly low life, like ex-felon smuggler friends that lived in the area I was from. I felt like I was going to die and be so alone if I had to walk away from that lifestyle. So ultimately what ended up happening, and I moved to Santa Cruz shortly after that, and I went to an AA meeting because I was ordered to go to an AA meeting, and I didn't drink because I had this damn interlock device on my vehicle. I didn't drink before, and it was 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, like I am loaded by 6 o'clock because I'm drinking all day at this point. And so I went to this meeting in the little town of Ben Lomond, the Ben Lomond Fellowship in Santa Cruz Mountains, California, where I got sober. And I remember walking up the steps. It was summer, and it was this old house, and everyone's sitting out on the porch smoking cigarettes, and I was like, oh my God, no way. Like, this is the most horrible sentence ever. The interlock thing I can deal with, but having to do this. So I walked into this fellowship, and I sat down, old dirty couches, and there's some guy next to me, and he smells like alcohol, and he's he's like half passed out. And I am pissed. I'm judging him, right? Like, how dare this guy come into an AA meeting smelling like alcohol? I didn't drink before I came here. Like, I am pissed that he was loaded and I wasn't. The insanity, right? And so I didn't end up back in that fellowship, which is where I got sober for about another year and a half. And here's what it looked like after that. It looked like drinking all day long. So I'm not one of those people that lost my stuff or my money. And I would get up in the morning. My parents taught me how to function, right? I would get up in the morning. I owned my house. I would take care of my yard. I would clean my house. I would feed my animals. I had a horse. I would go up the road and take care of my horse. Sometimes I'd make it to the gym. By noon, I was home drinking. Christmas of 2012, I spent alone in a recliner, in and out of consciousness, drinking a mixture of wine and vodka cranberries. So the wine made me a little too sleepy. I had to pump it up with the vodka cranberries, in and out of consciousness, wanting to die. And it wasn't until a year later, I was pretty badly abused on December 6th of 2013, like hospital abused, right? Somebody told me that I was in this dysfunctional relationship, story of my life, told me they were going to kill me. And I got away after taking a pretty bad beating. And I spent a day and a night in the hospital and took a taxi cab home because I was too embarrassed to tell anyone that I knew. And pretty much everyone that I knew wasn't really talking to me at that point. I had a concussion that was so bad that I couldn't drink for a couple days, even though I tried. So as soon as I could get that alcohol back in there, I was drinking. Like, that's how sick I was. And I know about the disease of alcoholism. I know about Alcoholics Anonymous. I took my middle kid to a meeting, 5 years prior, and sat there in the meeting with them. I'm a pretty smart, capable woman, and I've accomplished a lot of things before I got sober, and I could not identify my own disease. To even say to myself, well, you're an alcoholic, but you don't want to get sober. Like, I couldn't even identify with the fact that I was an alcoholic. And guess what? Nobody in my family could either. It was, Mom, you're an effing wreck. Like, you're an emotional roller coaster. You're an emotional wreck. So I always got labeled with these other things. So I drank for another 4 days and called and had some pity party on the phone with my son, my middle son, and the next day I woke up to my oldest son, who only lived 25 minutes away from me. I'm a grandma. I have triplet granddaughters that live 25 minutes away from me. And so my son called me and he goes, "Hey, Mom." And he started saying something, and I started trying to talk about Christmas. And he goes, No, we're not going to talk about Christmas. He goes, "Look, you've got a problem. We reserved a bed for you. It was in Scotts Valley, California, right around the corner from my house. And you've got a problem, and I'm going to pick you up in a couple hours, and you're going to treatment. And if you don't go, don't ever call any of us ever again. We're done. We don't know if you're going to be dead or alive." Whoa, what? Wait! My clothes aren't clean. What am I going to bring, you know? I was still pretty bruised up. I was hungover. Anyway, he came and got me. I surrendered. And, you know, I actually felt like the rescuing I'd been looking for most of my life, and the love actually showed up that day. But it was definitely, you guys, it was a drop kick into treatment. Like, they didn't come see me over Christmas. They didn't really pick up the phone when I called them from the payphone. And so I go there with my Darvocet and my Xanax and my Robaxin and my stuff, my cocktail, right? And when I hear you guys talk about getting the shakes and needing to take that next drink, that didn't happen to me because I had all those that other little medicinary, right? And so that's why I don't think I ever got the shakes. And they're like, okay, we'll take. I'm like, no, you can't take all that stuff. Are you kidding me? No, this is about alcohol. You cannot take all that stuff. And I just remember the lady looking at me and saying, we need to take all that stuff. And I said, I'm going to have panic attacks. It's going to be horrible. You can't take it. And she said, you're going to be okay. We've got detox meds for you. And you know what, you guys? I was okay. I haven't touched a pill since then. And well, I take a little bit of Lexapro because it's still a little crazy in there, right? Yeah. So, and then for the women in the room that are older, like, menopause is a bitch in sobriety, right? It's like, what the hell? I can't sleep. I'm acting psycho again. Yeah. So it takes what it takes, right? So, anyway, I remember it was a gnarly detox, you guys. The third day in, I'm, you know, I'm in a detox. I got a migraine. And I remember sitting in a room with probably this many people. It was a big recovery center, and raising my hand and saying, I just went, I'm Monica and I'm an alcoholic. And the relief that came over me to know that that's, I would find out later that's not all that's wrong with me, but the relief that I felt in that moment is like, I'm an alcoholic and you're all alcoholics, and there's a solution, and I get to have a sponsor? You mean there's a woman that's going to listen to all my shit? And, oh my God. Like, oh my God. And so you guys, I felt like I belonged, and I was in there with young kids, you know, coming off of heroin and stuff, and here I am, this high society alcoholic older woman, you know, and they're all talking about their boyfriends. And so anyway, it was a very humbling experience. I love everybody now, you know. It was just, my ego was very humbled. And but what I heard is that there's hope and that there's fellowship. And what I felt in the 30 days when I was in that treatment center was I felt a sense of family. And here's what's happened for me. So hearing that another woman was going to answer the phone for me every time I called and we were going to talk. Shanna's my sponsee. I love her so much. I just love her so much. I'm so proud of her. Yeah. So, knowing that there was going to be another woman who answered the phone when my fucking fingernail fell off and I wanted to drink, you know, my sponsor, and I've had a few because I'm really picky. Sometimes they piss me off. Or they're too hard on me, and then I get my feelings hurt. But my sponsor was, and still is, hi, Kate, I love you. I love you so much. She's watching. And my sponsors have been my conduit to my higher power, because God speaks through all of us, you know, and there was no way that, you know, I had 4 relapses, by the way, when I got sober. I got into this really dysfunctional alcoholic relationship because I don't like to take direction, and I was terrified of being alone. And every time we'd have a fight once a month, I'd have a pity party and I'd drink. I knew I was an alcoholic, and I knew I was going to announce myself the next day, but I needed to drink over this because I was pissed, right? So, I had 4 relapses that were all 1 month apart. I never missed my 90 and 90. I'm not giving myself a pat on the back for the relapses, right? But they were pity parties, and there's no reason for that. So there was no way I could do that step 3. I could say, oh yeah, like, I can believe that a higher power is going to restore me to sanity, and yep, I can turn my will and my life over to a higher power. Let's get on with it. I want to do step 4. I want to know everything that's wrong with me. I want to get it all out on the table, because I want to get to step 8 and 9, and I just want everybody to love me again. Oh, and then I want to get to 12 because I can't wait to help other people. Oh my God, God. You guys, if God actually showed us everything that he wanted us, mine is a he, if my God showed me everything that I needed to work on the first time I did a 4-step, I probably wouldn't be here today. And that's the beauty of the program. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, progress not perfection, easy does it, one day at a time. So what having a sponsor has done for me is it has allowed me to call and say my ass is falling off. I'm hurting. I'm fucking pissed. I'm pissed. Everything. So the thing that I have always done is been completely willing to go to any length for my sobriety. And for me, that looks like, number one, physical sobriety. If I'm not physically sober, I cannot do the rest of this work. There is no cure for alcoholism, by the way, as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to be working on myself for the rest of my life. And anytime I believe that I'm cured, I'm headed for some sort of a relapse, whether it's a behavioral relapse, spiritual relapse. All those things I believe happen before the physical relapse happens. So the first thing I have to do is go to any lengths to stay physically sober. And if I don't start straightening my life out and finding this spiritual connection, I'm going to get loaded again because, I took Xanax for 22 years. Like, I don't like to feel. I don't like what goes on in my head. So my sponsors have been the conduit to my higher power. And what's happened for me by being in the big book, being in step studies, I mean, you guys, step studies are the way to go. This is all great and wonderful. Like, this is a party. This is the love, knowing that we're part of a family and we can relate to people. But being in the book with people that know the book and they can, like, I mean, let's face it, that book is old, right? The first couple times I tried to read it, I'm like, what? What does that sentence even mean? And I'm an intellectual person. Who is this guy, Bill, Bless his heart. And so the really cool thing about going to step studies is you hear old timers or people that have time that have come to understand, they can just tell you their experience as it relates to what's being read. And then you learn the literature and you just, it speaks something different every time, right? So here's, I had my fun meetings that I went to, and then I had, you better get busy and study meetings where I wasn't looking for a date. No one was looking at me for a date, and we were sitting there and we were working, and then I've been in the steps, you guys. I'm not kidding you, since I got sober. Either I'm in it with a sponsee or I'm in it and going back through it because life is not easy for me. Like it's not easy. So let me tell you, by the way, I have 4 beautiful children, and I have 2 sons that are 39 and 37. My youngest is 26, and then I have my daughter that I foster adopted. She's going to be a mommy pretty soon, and she's beat the odds for a kid that went through what she went through. And I'm a grandma. I have 7 grandkids. So here's what's happened for me in sobriety as a result of doing the steps and staying sober and being willing to go to any lengths to do my higher power's will. Because what I've come to know is that my whole purpose for being on this earth, I used to think it was to be a wife and to cook and clean and be a mom, right? And my purpose for being on this earth is to help other people. Like, think about it. If everyone on this earth helped another person and thought about another person and reached their hand out for another person, oh my God, it would be such a better place, right? So we all get the gift of being sober one day at a time. And we're all we think about. Like, guys, I just started a new job. I just became a real estate agent, and I haven't really worked in a hard job in a really long time, and like 20 years. I've done little things here and there, and let me tell you, and I'm pretty spiritual and I'm pretty grounded, but let me tell you, the disease of obsession. Like, I'm not obsessing over the drink. I'm obsessing over being perfect. And, you know, I'm up at 6 in the morning and my head's like, how are you going to do this right? And last night I'm closing my laptop down at 10:30 in bed. I'm like, well, as a salesperson, like, you don't just do this for a little bit and then you can relax. Same like AA. You don't just do it for a little bit and then you rest on your laurels. As a salesperson, you got to keep doing this. I'm like, is this the pace you want to set for yourself, Monica? Do you want to be at this pace until you decide not to do this anymore? No. So I have the awareness now. And so here's some, I've walked through my hardest year emotionally, mentally, and physically in sobriety this last year. So, you know, my partner and I came through here by accident we sold everything in Santa Cruz and we were traveling this old built-out Airstream. And we came through Prescott by accident in October of 2019. And we were literally both sober and ready to bury each other in a shallow grave. It was a matter of who was going to do it first. And he goes, I can live here. And I go, great, let me call a real estate agent. And we were in a house in a month. But we were at each other's throats, and we were both making each other miserable. And, you know, my partner had a stroke last August and realized that the toxicity of our relationship wasn't going to sustain him. He needed to get well. So he says, we need to move apart. I'm like, what? We're in the middle of COVID. I don't really know anyone. I can't afford to buy a house here anymore. Oh, and it was brutal, you guys. So the night that all blew up, I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm drinking. I don't care if I have to re-announce myself. Like, this is drink worthy. And then this voice came into my head and said, really? That's all you got, Monica? Really? So I didn't drink, and I didn't really have to fight with that demon. And what ended up happening is we both have been catapulted into this different dimension of self-awareness and faith. And I'll tell you what, I moved out. I had to find another place to live. And we've been walking through 9 months of health stuff for him, and he's a lot better now and on the mend. It's been gnarly, you guys. And you know what? I haven't been to a physical meeting in a really, really long time. I've been to a couple in the last year. And so because I stayed sober through this gnarly experience, my connection with my higher power has been like, it's gone in Mach speed. And now I have this connection where I can talk to my higher power, and I hear this voice come in and it tells me, we talk about the conscious connection. That's it. Like, I have this conscious connection with a higher power now, and I just know it's going to be okay, no matter what. And I get to apply that to what I'm doing today in my life. Like, I've been taught in Alcoholics Anonymous to stay sober, do the footwork, and more will be revealed. And I get to apply that to my work today. So it's all possible one day at a time if we stay sober. And I couldn't have done it without a sponsor, without all of you guys in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm just really grateful to be here tonight and to have been asked to speak. And just stay, you guys. It's not always easy, but you know what? It's better than being loaded. And the stuff on the other side, if you work this, it's better than you could have ever imagined, at least for me. So anyway, that's all. Thank you all.
Let's thank Monica one more time.